there is a completely unearned key change in the middle of the song. And I was listening to it and all of a sudden there's this key change and I'm like, well, there was no reason for that. And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. This is episode 8. This is Travis Ritchie, and with me is my good friend
Matt Runquist.
Matt, this is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists or bands to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this very podcast to discuss it all. Later on in the podcast, very soon, we will be discussing the movie Lion and Carly-Rae Jepsen's first album.
Yeah.
How are you, Matt? How's your week?
I'm good. My week has been good. Not too much to report. As you know, my wife's been going through a little medical stuff, and there was some progress on that this week. No answers yet, but closer to answers, so that's good.
Okay. Well, mysteries as far as medical stuff is never a good thing, I think, right?
Right. We like to know what they are so that we can find them and exterminate them.
Well, I hope it ends well.
But the other thing I've been working hard on the music. The new song came out yesterday, which I mentioned on the podcast last week, and it's I'm still really enjoying it. But every single week I have this moment of doubt where I'm like, this is terrible. I'm terrible. This is bad. I should stop. And so far,
that imposter syndrome raising its head.
Imposter syndrome is super bad. But for those of you who are experiencing imposter syndrome, it has worked for me to reach out to other people and just tell them how terrible I'm feeling about it. And you know what? They're there for me. So reach out to people, I think, and you'll find help. Yeah,
that's good. You know what? I agree completely. I had a similar feeling this week too. As you know, I have Bell's palsy, which maybe not all of our listeners will know, and I kind of realized that not all of my friends even know that I was born with half my face not quite working quite right. And so I posted a thing because George Clooney was on The Tonight Show for the 20th anniversary of the Jimmy who hosts that show. And they were talking about how he mentioned Jimmy pulled out a picture of George Clooney when he was in middle school or high school or whatever. And George said, well, just a minute, this picture, I had Bell's palsy. And so before you make a joke. And so I was like, oh, right. I do talk about that sometimes, that George Clooney also had it when he was a kid. And so I posted that. And in the comments of that post, people were incredibly supportive of me and that. So
I've always but I thought it was really incredible that you never, sure, you acknowledge it, but it's never slowed you down. And it's funny. It's a surprisingly common thing that a lot of people don't know about. It's sort of like a miscarriage or something. Like if you mention Bell's palsy, people are like, oh, I had that, or one of my classmates had that when I was in high school or something like that. So it is actually a pretty common experience. But people don't talk about it. So I appreciate you being super upfront with everybody and open about it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, what's less common is for it to be permanent, and generally people get better from it. So it's kind of like for most people, it's a temporary affliction, and so.
And whoever would have thought that you would be an overachiever, Travis?
Me? I don't know. You know what it is? It's compensation. That's what it is. It's even going into comedy in the first place was compensation. It's my way to kind of hold the world at bay. But speaking of overachieving, man, this week I had something going every single day. I started improv classes at UCB. That's the Upright Citizens Brigade here in Los Angeles. So I started my level 301 class on Monday, and it was a lot of fun. I am actually really excited about this class because it's big, first of all. There's 16 people, and my last class started at 12, but then kind of dwindled down until we only had maybe even 8 or so at the last for our show at the end. This class is a big class, but also there is only like maybe one weak link in the entire class, which I'm really happy about. Then, see, Thursday and Friday, I did writing sessions with the Idiot's Lantern, which is my Doctor Who sketch group. We have the big Gallifrey One's convention coming up next month, which is the world's largest Doctor Who convention that's run by fans anyway, so fan-run Doctor Who convention, I guess. Thousands of people come, and we usually have an audience. This is our 10th anniversary show. I haven't been with them the whole 10 years, but the last few shows we've had upwards of 1,000 people in the audience. Like generally about half the convention comes to our show. And so we're writing a really good show for this year's convention. I had 2 classes at the Collaborative, which is my acting group. We had a skills class on Wednesday, which was all about the accent, and we worked on the RP British accent, which is the same accent that I used as Wand Keeper in Japan when I was the Wand Keeper at Harry Potter World. And then we did a casting workshop on Thursday. I had another casting class on Saturday. So, man, it was just a week for me, man. And today I had 2 birthday parties to go to.
Oh my God. So, that is a lot. Oh, we did get 7 inches of snow yesterday. So
what?
Yeah. So
insane.
That was a big part of my week, especially because it is the first significant snow we've had this entire winter.
Really?
We've had an inch or two a few times. But this was our first big, fluffy, powdery snow.
Wow.
And there was a lot of it.
That's interesting. I mean, that actually comes to mind. I'm coming up on the 20th anniversary of moving to LA from Minnesota. And I left town right around the 29th or 30th of January. And that year was also a very dry year for snow. We had not had much snow. The day I left, it started snowing and didn't stop for like a week or 2 or something like that. It was crazy. And it was also a very wet winter in LA. So I got to LA and I was like, oh, it just rains in LA all the time. But then we didn't get rain for 20 years. And now here we are, another wet winter. So that's interesting.
Everything old is new again.
Interesting. Everything goes around. Well, shoot, man. This is an interesting. I'm interested to get right into our stuff if you want.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else you want to cover.
No, let's dive right into it.
I've been talking to people about. First of all, I've been talking to people about the podcast, and they've been hearing about it and seem interested.
Yeah.
If not having already come to me, like I've had 1 or 2 people come to me and be like, "Hey, I really like your podcast, and
nice.
The last episode was really interesting," stuff like that. So that's good to hear. And once again, we do have our Facebook page and email address. So if you want to email us any comments or suggestions or your own opinion on the movies that we're going to talk about, email us at. I forgot the name of the podcast for a second.
I believe it's Exposing Ourselves
it is.
Podcast.
Exposing Ourselves Podcast at gmail.com.
Nice.
And if you look up Exposing Ourselves on Facebook, you can find us there. So, well, what do you want to talk about first? Movies or music?
Let's talk about the music first. Let's swap the order.
You know, it's interesting. You say that every time, but are you sure we swapped? Because I feel like we always start with the music, which is fine.
I don't remember.
I feel like the last several weeks you've been like, let's switch it up and talk about the music first. But I feel like we always talk about the music first, which is fine because honestly, for me, it's harder. I have less to say. I feel about the music. Like, it's harder to dissect for me than it is to like all the things that go into a movie.
Yeah, maybe after we've got 50 or 60 episodes under your belt, you'll feel like you have a wider base of experience.
Is it the vocabulary I lack?
Could be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's not true, but so this week I was made to listen to Carly-Rae Jepsen's premiere album. Is it self-titled? Is it?
It is not self-titled. It's called.
What's it
called? It's called Kiss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when you assigned it, I'm pretty sure you said something along the lines of that this was not one of the things that made this special for you was that it was not a thing about like girls liking boys and that typical teen pop music. Right?
I don't
remember.
remember. I don't remember saying that. This is very down the middle, teeny bopper pop music. You might be.
Well, go ahead and tell us more about it.
Okay, so Carly-Rae Jepsen is a singer-songwriter from Canada. She had a brief, like almost a Tiffany phase in her teens. She did get signed to a couple of record like development type deals. But this album, so I guess this isn't technically her debut album. This is her breakout album.
Okay.
This was sort of a pivot to a little bit different
I was sold
style.
a bill of goods, is what you're saying.
You were sold a bill of goods, absolutely. You got to watch me carefully. So this was a sort of a pivot for her into a little bit more mature pop, but like she, so she was in her late 20s when this was recorded, but it absolutely sounds like
Really?
it absolutely sounds like it was recorded by like a 17-year-old Avril Lavigne. Yeah.
It sure does.
But so I can tell that you're going to like it, but it's very bouncy pop music. Lyrics are mostly about boys, and relationships. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Now,
it's
okay.
really, the reason I love it is because it's really well crafted and fun. Yeah.
I also wonder if you love it because you have a daughter who is around college age right now, right?
I would love to tell you that this is her fault, but no.
Really?
I mean, I do have a daughter who's college age, and she was in the sweet spot for liking this album. But no, this is me. This is
Wow.
I will say,
as I have discussed this album with people over the last week, that was my prevailing theory. That's because you said that this was one of your you really like this album.
I do love this
basically.
album.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Here's the thing that maybe our listeners certainly don't know, and I don't think you even know, is that in the 90s and early 2000s, I was very, very deep into the whole like indie. The more obscure the music is, the better. Very like if it's on the radio, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. And I only really started coming out of that around 2006, 2007, right? Where I started hearing some pop music that was really like interesting, and I started, learning about music that was just like more fun, right? And so this album came along at a time when I really had started to get back into like radio and pop, and realizing that I mean some of it's airy and pointless, but some of it is really, really quite good. And I love the hooks, I love the melodies, but I do want to hear what you think about this.
Okay, well, I'm honestly a little bit torn because this album is tailor-made for gay dance clubs. And I love me a dance club. I really do love dancing, and I miss it. I think part of the issue is that I had kind of stopped going to clubs by the time this came out. So I do, of course, remember Call Me Maybe. Everybody, you couldn't avoid it. And I think I mentioned that I had a parody song that I edited a video for one of my exes, actually, that was Hold My Baby. And so I was familiar with it. Now, listening to it, I listened to it twice. The first time through was on a hike, where once again I have nothing to do but focus on the music. The second time through was on my bike during a bike ride, and it was a little more like backgroundy. I enjoyed it more the second time, but neither time did I really like it, and I feel like it's a very dance party album. Do you ever listen to this when you don't just want to dance?
No, I mean, this music absolutely makes me want to dance. But I do, it gets you up, it gets you moving for sure. It's interesting that you point that out because, of course, this was like a huge hit in the gay clubs, or not necessarily like in the gay clubs, but like in the gay community. Carly-Rae Jepsen is very much in your Kylie Minogue, Robin sort of. A huge portion of her fan base is gay. And if you look at her next album, Emotion, That one is also fantastic, but and it's a little more mature, and it definitely leans into that quite a bit. That is not nearly as widely known amongst the general populace, but I would say it for a lot of people, it's more. A lot of the gays like Emotion better than Kiss, because Kiss is very like middle school, right? Like it feels very basic in its emotions and so forth.
Yeah, it kind of does, and that's I'll get to that for a second. But I have mostly depended on, I want to say, my boyfriends to expose me to new music. Like it took.
You're welcome.
Maybe not. No, not well. I mean, yeah, you were my college platonic straight boyfriend, I suppose, and you did expose me to some things that I really liked in the end. But like I remember, I listened to like it took Matthew to expose me to Lady Gaga. It took Rob to expose me to some newer. Like Kylie Minogue you mentioned, and I love some of that stuff, some of their music especially. But by the time, I don't know where I was when this album came out, but I certainly didn't listen to anything more than Call Me Maybe. So all of this was new to me. And I want to say my biggest critique, my biggest criticism, and it's kind of unavoidable for me, was I didn't like her voice.
Really?
I thought it was slightly too high pitched for my ear, and I found it annoying to listen to. And what's interesting is Call Me Maybe is not like that. Call Me Maybe is pitched down a little bit, and it's not every song either. It's just most of them. And I hate to use this word because it's the kind of word my dad would use, but it's kind of the very definition of teeny bopper music.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like teeny as in made for teens, but also teeny like it's that kind of teeny voice, almost tinny sound, which is not pleasant for me to listen to. And that made me wonder if maybe I'm a bit sexist when it comes to music, because like I kind of had the same problem with Haim, but not with AJR, but I did have the same problem with the Decemberists. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, Colin Malloy has a girly voice, so I can say
and
that,
I do
right?
certainly love my share of female singers. It was a thought that flitted through my head as I was listening to this while I was on the trail. I was like, oh, I don't like this. Am I sexist? But I don't think so. But it was also funny that like there's a song, I think it was the fourth song in the album, Curiosity, where there is a completely unearned key change in the middle of the song. And I was listening to it and all of a sudden there's this key change, and I'm like, well, there was no reason for that.
Well, I just looked at it. The song is only 3.5 minutes long, so probably the key change is just to get the extra 40 seconds out to make it like long enough, right?
Oh, really? Maybe. Because originally it was only going to be under 3 minutes or something?
Yeah, it was going to be under 3 minutes, and that's not long enough, yeah.
Oh, goodness. So, I don't know. I just noticed that there was a song that featured Justin Bieber. I did notice a song where there was a guy singing, and if that was Justin Bieber...
Wait a minute. No, I took the Justin Bieber song off.
Oh, you
of
did?
The playlist.
Okay, I'm looking at the album right now because I needed some information about dates and stuff. So
yeah, there's. Okay. I took the Justin Bieber song off specifically because I feel like it's the one weak point on the album. There is that there's an Owl City song, which is another collaboration. So you can see that the record label certainly believed in her enough to. I mean, Justin Bieber hadn't completely blown up at this point, but he was definitely an artist on the rise. Mm-hmm. I think Baby had been recorded but hadn't come out when this album was recorded, and so he was obviously a bit of a get at the time. Owl City was a bit of a get. They had a pretty big following as well. So
interesting.
Certainly the label believed in this enough to really kind of get some high profile guests on it and push it.
Yeah, and it's not bad for what it is. I can't say that I would probably put this on my regular rotation unless I was having a party where I wanted dance music.
See? So this is not going on the hypothetical boyfriend mixtape, but is potentially going on the party mixtape.
Yeah, sure. Hosting a party, yeah.
And you could put a deep cut on now rather than putting Call Me Maybe. Everybody knows Call Me Maybe. You could what was your favorite song? X, Call Me Maybe.
X Call Me Maybe? Oh man, that's a hard one because I think Call Me Maybe was my favorite song of the album. I couldn't peg another song that I liked any better than any of the rest.
All right.
So
I've always enjoyed the sort of the really basic couplets on this one, to the point where in the last song, or second to last song, it's actually called Guitar String / Wedding Ring, right? Which is just the cheesiest rhyme in the entire world. Like, if you gave me a piece of guitar string, I would wear it like it's a wedding ring.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my God.
Just I found that cheesiest. But see, this
is.
Again, I would say this does go back to a time so that I would say that was perceptive of you, that this does definitely remind me of a time in my life. It's just, it doesn't revolve around my daughters liking it, but it does remind me of a time when I was learning more about pop music and sort of engaging with it in a way that was much less ironic and emotionally closed off. Right. Because as people who were steeped in 90s culture, I have a tone control problem where it sounds like I'm sarcastic all the time, even when I'm not. Okay. And, people of our generation often have trouble with like authenticity and like experiencing things in a way that isn't at an emotional distance. And when this album came out and when I was really enjoying it was a time in my life when I was trying to learn to not be like that,
Oh, that's sweet.
And so, yeah, like the last, I'm going to give a shout out to the last song here, Your Heart is a Muscle, because
yes,
it absolutely is, right? Like, yes, on the straightforward, your heart is a muscle, but like then the lyrics go on to say, you got to work it out, make it stronger, right? You have to engage with the world. You have to be present in relationships. You have to try, right? You can't just like float through life and expect things to come to you. You can't float through life and expect love to come to you. You have to work it out and make it stronger, And so, yeah, sure. Is that kind of a basic observation? Yeah, but it's also true, right?
Yeah, I wanted to read a bit from the Guitar String Wedding Ring lyrics.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Please go ahead.
So here's a sample. So you're a bird in the water, I'm a fish on the ground. Just hold me closer, or oh, won't you hold me down tonight? But if you cut a piece of guitar string, I would wear it like it's a wedding ring, wrapped around my finger. You know what I mean? You play my heartstrings.
All right. So it's funny because there's a little bit of a parallel here with a much older song. Are you familiar with the 9 Inch Nails song Ring Finger?
No. No.
You're familiar with the band 9 Inch Nails, though?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So in 1989, they released the album Pretty Hate Machine, and there's this song on there called Ring Finger that has the cheesiest fucking... I don't think it's possible to write a song about someone's ring finger without being cheesy, even when you're being kind of gross. So I looked up those lyrics. Ring finger, promise carved in stone, deeper than the sea. Ring finger, sever flesh and bone and offer it to me. So one, gross, right? But two, like, that's cheesy, man. Like, come on, Trent.
And this just goes to show that lyrics to songs, sometimes the song isn't about the poetry. Sometimes the song is about the music and the melody, and then you just kind of write whatever you can to go with it.
Yeah.
But other times it's the poetry first, and then you write something that goes with that. And these are various examples of both of those things.
Maybe we should have a contest. This is the Exposing Ourselves Songwriting Challenge. Write a song about a ring finger that isn't awful.
Well, I think that sounds like a Stankhole
Panko Stankhole
Panko
songwriting
Stankhole.
prompt. If I so I've already changed one of my songwriting prompts because I decided I didn't like it in the moment. So I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket because I do have them planned out for the entire year.
Oh, do you? Wow.
Yes,
I
do
know that.
have the
Okay.
prompts planned out for the entire year, but some of them I get to them and I'm like, actually, I don't feel like doing that. So I'm going to write a decent ring finger song, or at least a song that references the ring. I think it's impossible to revolve around the ring finger and not be a cheese ball song.
Yeah, I don't know. It's there's got to be something there. I'm sure there's something interesting to say about the ring finger, but I, not being a musician, don't know what it is.
Maybe you could write a skit about a ring finger. So, are you ready to rate, or do you have more
sure.
to say?
I mean, this is middle of the road for me. I'd probably give it a healthy 5.
Sure.
I mean, that might be a little bit generous, actually, but I'm comfortable with.
You can be honest with me. My feelings aren't a candy bar.
Boy, now you're talking me down. You know what? Nah, I'm gonna give it a 4.
Yeah.
Because there's one really good song that I have enjoyed multiple times, but the rest of it is kind of there are certain songs that are actually hard to listen to for me, and most of it is a little bit superfluous.
You gotta work it out, make it stronger, shine for me just a little longer. Your heart is a muscle. Well, this album is a 9 for me. It would be a 10 without the Justin Bieber song.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't hurt you or anything with this. I'm not like trying to get back at you for last week's episode.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
right, good.
I am trying to suggest things to you that I like.
Ditto.
And I would like it if you liked them, but
Sure.
honestly, I just want us to have a good conversation and hang out. So
yeah, exactly. We've established this. We're for the most part we're only going to recommend things that we like to the other.
Yeah.
Unless we do our very special episode idea, which I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah, I've actually started sort of casually trying to think of what's a classic album that I've never listened to. So now I'm like avoiding listening to things just in case we decide to do this very special episode.
There are definitely highly rated movies that I have not seen that I'm fairly certain that you have also not seen that I think we could watch together. So
awesome. Well, we're a little bit behind schedule. Let's move on to the movie.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, speaking of highly rated, let's talk about Lion. Lion is the movie that I thought, so it came out in 2016 alongside movies like Moonlight, Arrival, La La Land, Manchester by the Sea, if you remember that one, and Hidden Figures came out that year. And so a really good slot of Best Motion Picture of the Year nominees for the Oscars. But while famously La La Land was announced to have won the Oscar, but then then they said, "Oh, we were wrong," and it was actually Moonlight that happened live on air. And so, but I thought Lion was the movie that should have won that year. I think it's a beautiful movie. The story is about this little boy in India. He's like 5 years old, and he gets on a train. He gets kind of lost, and he gets locked on this train and travels thousands of miles away from home. And he's so young, he doesn't know how to find his way home. And he gets adopted by this Australian couple and lives a fairly privileged life with them. And then 25 years later, the advent of the internet happens, and he hears about Google Earth and starts searching for home. And it stars Dev Patel as the older Saru, a young actor by the name of Sunny Pawar as young Saru, who is just amazing to me, and also Nicole Kidman as their adopted mom. So what'd you think?
I really liked it. We'll start there. Yeah, I really
Okay.
liked it. What do
I
I
also
want to
rewatched it, by the way, this week because I had only seen it one time, and this opinion
Okay.
of mine was all from that one
All
viewing
based on the one viewing.
way back. Yeah.
So let me ask you a couple of questions here because I'm a little iffy on the chronology. Was this after they expanded the Best Picture category to 10 films, or was it still only 5 at the time?
It was that year. It was 9 films were nominated. So
yeah,
this was
up,
after
up
that.
to
Yeah.
10. Yeah. Okay, and so it was nominated, but didn't win
Correct.
for Best
Correct.
Picture. Okay.
Yep.
So here's what I'll say about this movie. I really, really liked it. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous film.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you get to see parts of India that are not typically shown. The actor, Sunny Pawar, you said?
Yeah.
The actor who plays young Saru is absolutely phenomenal. You know how I read Christian Bale a little for his performance in Empire of the
Yep.
Sun, and I said it's not
Yep.
fair to put
There's a lot of
movie-
parallels actually
and
between
not-
these
yeah,
two
there
movies.
are a lot of parallels, and I would say I liked this movie quite a bit better. This is how this is what you need from your young actor if you're going to put it on the shoulders of a kid. He is
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Now, I can't speak to his line delivery in Hindi, but it sure seems good. He seems very naturalistic, right? And his reactions, his
eyes are so expressive.
very expressive eyes. I don't know how much of this was direction and how much of it was just a very naturalistic actor, but really, really, really good stuff from Sunny Pawar. Like, I really can't say enough good things about.
I think all
his
the actors, like all the Indian actors, all the his brother and his mom, they were all so. The emotions that they all have are so clean and real and natural. It was so interesting to watch for me.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was all really good. So I want to get into some things that I found a little bit hitchy about this without in any way implying that I didn't like the movie, because I did like the movie, but these were things that were tough for me. One, this movie is extremely plot light. You gave me like a 3-sentence summary or a 3-sentence introduction to the movie last week. And the only part of the plot that you hadn't revealed to me was like the last 4 minutes of the movie, right?
Sure.
It's he gets lost, he gets adopted, he goes to find his family. Like that's the whole plot, right? Mm-hmm. There's very few ancillary characters. Those characters have very little screen time. Adult Saru has a girlfriend, and the relationship kind of it's actually, I mean, it's handled really well, right? But like, this movie is relentless in its focus on Saru's point of view, and I really, really liked that. I found it easier to live in that movie than I did with Empire of the Sun, because
good, because
yeah,
I noted that difference too when I was rewatching it, and especially with your criticism of Empire having just a little too much.
Yeah,
this is very simple.
Yes, it's very simple. It's very focused on the things that he knows, the things that he understands, the things that he sees. I could have used a few more scenes in Australia. Like, there's a 20-year skip, and then there's sort of like scenes around that time that kind of imply what has happened in the intervening time. I wouldn't have hated either a time skip to an intervening time, or just like more, right? You've got
what benefit would that have had for you? What would you have liked to have seen, do you think?
I just wanted a little more plot. Right? Okay. He obviously, like, this movie is very, very focused on his search for his family, and that's great, but it did just kind of leave me a little bit like wanting more, right? Which is not...
Well, I think the interesting thing about it is that, so just story-wise, you're looking at this kid who gets lost and gets adopted, and almost the whole first act is all of the getting lost, getting adopted, and the I'm trying to think of it from a story structure point of view, but the inciting incident almost is almost the moment when someone says, "Hey, have you ever heard of Google Earth?"
Yeah.
And that's far further into, like, maybe further than halfway into the movie, I want to say.
Yeah. The entire first half of the movie is in India, which is not at all what I was expecting when you described it.
Yeah, I didn't either. In my memory, it wasn't that much, but it's all fascinating. And it all kind of leads into, it's almost like you're watching him solve a puzzle. And when it all comes together, it feels like it very easily could have felt contrived.
Yeah.
But the way they set things up early on to pay off as he was decoding his own memory to use as this puzzle-solving mechanism, I thought was really rewarding to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think they set that scene up where he all of a sudden realizes he probably should expand his search radius a little bit and keep following the line. I thought that was all really, really well done and really well set up. There is like a chunk, maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through this movie where like there's a lot of like he's angsty, he's stuck in his apartment, he won't go out, he's like clicking things on his computer, and it does get a little bit like I get the point, he's searching, right? But again, like this is why I don't want to get too deep into the criticisms, because I feel like they're really nitpicky. Like overall, the movie is really fantastic. It tells a beautiful story, and then can we do a spoiler alert here? There's a spoiler alert here for the end of Lion.
So let's say first, I highly recommend, if you have not seen this movie, seek it out. It's currently on Netflix, and so you can watch it for free. It's going to be, I feel, like a rewarding experience for anybody to watch. Although it can also be, I would say there's some triggering moments too. If you have, I don't know, just beware, it's an emotional experience.
If you have young children, I think it could be triggering. If you have fears around human trafficking, I think it could be triggering for sure. So the end of the movie is a real whirlwind, right? He's in Australia, right? And then there's like a jump to the village that he finds, and he finds his mom, and he finds out his brother is, again, spoiler alert, his brother is dead and died on the night he disappeared.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
it doesn't feel like it's a inappropriate jump. Like, and you do see him. You see him on the airplane. You see him on the train. You see him in the hotel. You see him decide to go search for the village, and you see him on the walk to the village and seeing all these familiar landmarks. It's not quite as fast as you just described. And then
that wasn't a read at all. I'm just saying, like, there is real whiplash at the end of this movie, because you find out that, I was saying this movie is told relentlessly from his point of view. One of the things that happens in this movie is that he has these sort of visions of his brother searching for him, and about his mother and his brother, and to a lesser extent his sister, and what might be going on, what they might be thinking and feeling. He actually interacts with his sort of dreams about them, and because it's so relentlessly from his point of view, and he doesn't know that his brother is dead, right? The audience is definitely led to believe that his brother is still alive, which is fine, right?
Because we don't know if these visions that he's having are his perspective, or maybe
like
if
they're memories
reality,
that are surfacing,
the real thing that happened that he's kind of imagining.
Because he is also surfacing real memories. So and then you find out that his brother is dead, and all those things were just him, like, not hallucinating, but like coming up with plausible scenarios which end up not being true, right?
Wow, yeah. I mean, I'm sure his mom did spend time looking for him, and in those moments where she's at the watering hole or at the river, with all the boys playing, and she's calling for his name.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that she's calling for his name, but not Gadoo's name, and all that takes on a whole nother meaning. But they do an interesting. He finds the house that he grew up in, the hovel of a house, and goes in, and it's now a goat pen.
Yeah.
And he thinks he's come all this way and failed, and he goes outside, and the guy who leads him down the road, and from the distance he sees him. Oh, that was all. I thought it was it built the tension very well, and it also the emotion built. And one of the things I noticed is that the music, which can often be very emotionally manipulative in movies, felt very supportive emotionally in this movie, and I, of course, this goes back to my watching of Empire of the Sun, but movies about boys being reunited with their mothers, man, I don't know why that gets me, but this got me. I finished rewatching it just before we started recording, and I was a bit of a mess for a few minutes. So.
Yeah, it's definitely an emotional ending to the movie. I really dug this movie. I'm glad I watched it. The pacing issues aside, one of the things that the glacial pacing allows you is a lot of really beautiful shots of India. I really liked the way that American or Western audiences are introduced to the idea that India is not a monolith, and that there are, of course, hundreds of languages still spoken in India. And even if you speak one of the dominant languages like Hindi, that doesn't mean that you speak Bengali. And that there are places in the country that you're going to really have a hard time if you only speak one language
I was very surprised by that. I mean, I remember feeling that kind of like, oh wow, even he's probably traveled 1,000 miles, but this boy can't speak the language in the place that he ends up in. He ends up in Calcutta and can't speak Bengali, which I guess was the dominant language there. This movie was fairly successful. So we talked a little bit about how movies don't tend to be nominated or win Oscars if they're not successful, right? Yeah. This made $140 million on a $12 million budget.
Wow.
It was a decently successful movie. So it's an Australian movie produced, in Australia. So I don't know I don't know how much of that box office was American versus worldwide. Yeah. But it.
So it cost like 300 or 400 million Australian dollars. Yeah.
Because it was $12 million. I don't know the exchange rate on that. Yeah. But so I'm looking right now. It made 51 million in the United States and Canada, and then 88 million in other countries for a worldwide total of 140. So not bad. And
not bad at all.
Dev Patel and Nicole Kidman both got Academy Award nominations. Neither of them won, although I believe Dev Patel won a BAFTA for his performance. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, we could maybe briefly talk about the casting of Dev Patel here.
Okay.
Dev Patel is an insanely hot, light-skinned British man, and
British Indian man.
Well, British man of Indian descent, but like he's not from India. I mean, when he played in Slumdog, which was his big breakout role, there was consternation then about the fact that he's not Indian. You do get to see during the credit sequence of this movie actual Saru, and he is like every other, like the child Saru, and like every other Indian actor in the movie, a pretty dark-skinned dude. It's so it is a little jarring to see the adult Saru be so like notably not the same. Just because I'm kind of used to casting directors doing. Man, this is like the lightest possible criticism.
No, it's just it. Okay,
like,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm so used to like these days of like just these insanely good casting decisions where I found it jarring just because like the whole first half of the movie is all these like really dark-skinned Indian people, including Saru, right? And then you grow up and all of a sudden Saru is not dark-skinned anymore. And it does take you out of it a little bit. Now he's also insanely hot. He's very nice to look at. I definitely yelled at the screen like, honey, he's out of your league, at his girlfriend.
That's Rooney Mara.
I know, but he's out of her league.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
So, yeah.
I mean, who would you have wanted to,
I think
like,
this is,
I suppose
I think
someone
that's
like
a question.
Aziz Ansari might have been more appropriate casting, but would you have wanted to watch him in that role?
Well, I honestly don't know, right? I don't think there are a lot of dark-skinned Indian men with like, chops in Hollywood, but
of the appropriate age too.
Yeah, of appropriate age. But that in itself is just the same problem stated a different way, right? It's not like these people don't exist, right? They're just not making films in Hollywood.
Okay. Yes. I mean, how do you get a greenlit movie for okay, fair enough. And this was the director's first big movie, so he's not going to be the draw, and who knows who came on first, whether it was Dev or Nicole Kidman. But
clearly they're the two stars that got this made, right? Like until their names were attached, this was never going anywhere,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have that much of a problem with it as you do. It's not whitewashing.
I don't have that much of a problem with it either. I just, I'm calling it out. Like, it is colorism, absolutely, and colorism is a problem in India just as much as it's a problem here.
I would love to hear what Dev Patel would have to say about that. If he is of Indian descent, even if he is not born in India, and so, like, I don't know, and especially since the character ended up living most of his life, the actual person lived most of his life in a white household in Australia. Yeah, like it seems to me he's the perfect person for the role. If I don't know, rather than finding someone who maybe would have a hard time.
Okay, I'm going to throw something at you here, and if this devolves, we can cut this. How would you feel about a biopic about your life being played by an actor without Bell's palsy, but in makeup?
I probably would feel pretty fine about it because I understand that it's I feel like that's maybe a bad example because it's hard to find somebody with permanent Bell's palsy who can also act.
I don't think it's very difficult at all.
Well, you think you're looking at him, but I can't play myself at 20 or whatever part of my life, however, I am probably not going to be the right age to portray myself in my own biopic, but given, assuming that that's the case, that I'm 60 and they're finally making a biopic of me in my 30s, I wouldn't want to play that. And yeah, so put some makeup on a guy and or CGI something going on with some actor's face. I don't know. But I thought you were going to say something like a non-queer actor playing me or something like that. And that, although my gayness is probably not the thing I am ever going to be known for, that
except in
these
certain
days,
circles.
It depends on where you are. But that's probably not going to be the thing that
300 feet away.
Are you on my grinder right now? No, I personally don't think that that's such a big of a deal. Actors can act. I do understand where I think that inclusion is important. Representation is different. Okay, does that make sense?
Talk a little more about that.
I think it's important to include actors of various types. So if you're making a movie about a trans person, then reach out to the trans acting community and find your people there first before you reach out to find others that may be able to also act competently in your movie. So if you're those are the things that I'm talking about. So try to look for people with disabilities first if you're making a movie about people with disabilities. Look for look for Native American people first if you're making a movie about Native Americans. Look for people of the tribes that you're portraying first before you reach out and broaden your scope. That's inclusion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. And I don't know what the casting process was like for this movie. I think that I would bet that there was a better choice. Well, race is a social construct, and my rating for this movie is a 7.
You're going to rate this a 7?
Yeah, this was a really good, competent movie. I liked it a lot. I had a few problems with, like the pacing and the plotting, right? But overall, yeah, I liked it. Dug it.
I am going to rate it a 9. I think it wasn't quite. I don't know if it's not perfect. I was very happy to revisit it. I have no problems with it. I enjoyed the experience of coming back to this movie very much. I don't know that it's going to be a movie I'm going to watch. It's been 6 years since I've seen it, so maybe it'll be another 6 years before I see it again. But I think that I'll enjoy it when I do once more.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. So there we go. A 7 and a 9 for Lion, and a 4 and a 9 for Carly-Rae Jepsen's.
Yeah.
Kiss. Not bad. I know what I'm going to assign you for next week. Do you know what you're going to assign me?
Oh, that's exciting. I do know what I'm going to assign you, but I want to hear yours.
All right. Have you seen the movie Jumanji with Robin Williams?
Yes.
I figured you might have. Have you seen Jumanji? Is it Return to the Jungle? The kind of soft reboot?
This is the part where I remind you that you are assigning the movie, and I don't know.
Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, it's called.
Welcome to the Jungle. We've got fun and games. I get that joke.
Yes. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Well, good. You're about to.
To see it.
So Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle came out in 2017, and there are things So here's just the backstory. I did not want to watch this movie when I saw the trailers for it. I thought the trailers looked dumb. I thought the movie looked dumb. And I was completely surprised by how much I loved the experience, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I think you should go in as a blank slate as possible to see this movie.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I felt the same way about the original Jumanji. I thought the trailers looked dumb. I thought the movie looked dumb, and I quite enjoyed it. So this will be,
well, it's hard not to like a Robin Williams movie. And of course, Robin Williams isn't around anymore.
He had a few stinkers. So
a couple, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Couple.
Yeah. So this is. I will say though that this is one of the things that concerned me is that they were rebooting Jumanji in the age of reboots, where everything was being rebooted, and this is more of a soft reboot, and it does actually retain the original movie as canon. Okay. That's all I'll say.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Well,
what you got for me?
We are going in a very different direction this
week.
Oof,
thank God.
Okay. Well, I mean, don't get ahead of yourself.
Oh no.
But I want you to know that I'm not assigning this to you as punishment. No, I'm assigning this to you because I really, really like it, and I'm hopeful that you will find something to like about this.
Okay. Do you know? I mean, early assignments from you were surprisingly popular with me. So
yeah. So this may be. I'm not even going to say it's a surprise if you like this.
Don't prejudge.
It's very different from what we've been doing. So we've been very much in the pop rock realm for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
But as I told you, didn't listen to pop for a super long time. I used to listen to a whole bunch of different genres, but one of them that I super got into is a genre called post-rock, which is guitar-based music that sort of abandons traditional song structures, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, right? And goes in for a lot more, well, it basically expands, right? Sort of gets bigger and more cinematic. Are you familiar with the band Arcade Fire?
I've heard of them.
They would
probably have heard of one or two songs.
Their early stuff was sort of in that post-rock realm, and then they, but there was a very early, very impressive band called Godspeed You Black Emperor. So, yeah. A shifting lineup. There's a couple of members that are sort of like the guys, right? But Godspeed is sort of known for insane live shows, very dramatic, very over the top. And their first album is called F Sharp, A Sharp, Infinity. And it begins with a 14-minute long track, or maybe 18 minutes long. We're going to check real quick here.
Okay.
But there's only one song. I'm giving you one song. It's 16 minutes. There we go.
Oh, you're giving me a 16-minute song to listen to for next week?
I'm giving you a 16-minute song called The Dead Flag Blues. Now,
by whom again?
Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Oh, God, this is a lot. Okay.
It is a lot.
I'm excited and scared.
Yeah.
Like Little Red Riding Hood.
So, ideally, I'm going to tell you a perfect situation, and you're probably not going to be able to put that into action, and so, we'll just have to deal with it.
I'm not going to listen to it high.
Do you have a friend... Not that perfect.
Okay.
Do you have a friend that you could drive out to the desert with? Or alone. I mean, you could do it alone, but
I don't have a car, so
right. That's why
can't do it alone.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
does it have to be the desert?
Ideally, it could just be at night, right? But the point is you wouldn't be distracted by other things, and the desert is ideal for that.
Interesting. It's very cold here at night.
Yeah, well, that's why you're inside of a car with heat,
Okay.
But ideally, you would be driving alone across the desert, and you would hear this song, and it would be very emotional for you. Now, if you can't do that, another thing would be like at the beach at night, or I don't know how close to what time does Running Canyon close? Like, is it it's dark and it's closed?
It's technically sunrise to sunset. Does it have to be at night?
It helps if it's at night. The point is like a lack of distractions. I guess what I'm saying is I want you. This is one where you can't be distracted.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what. I'll find a place. It might not be at night, but I'll hike up to the top of the Wisdom Tree, and I'll have the Wisdom Tree is a great place where I will sit and you can meditate and you can look out over the San Fernando Valley or the LA Basin, out towards the ocean.
Travis, I want you to know how committed to this. I was looking up moon phases to see when the moon would be setting over the ocean.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow. Yeah. Because, I feel like I'm only giving you one song. It's 16 minutes long, but that's that's like half the length of anything I've given you so far. Yeah, the other thing is that this is like, so yes, it's a 16-minute song, but there are movements to it that it ends up being like,
I promise.
It ends up being like three or four songs. So,
yeah. So I'll definitely find at least two situations to give this song its proper due.
All right. I'm really excited to hear what you have to think about it. I'm actually hopeful that you're gonna find something to like about this.
All right. Me too. Me too. I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
You haven't. I've listened. Even the songs and stuff that you've assigned so far that I haven't loved. It's been an interesting experience for me. And you know me.
Same here.
Always in for the experience.
Yeah. Same here.
All right. Well, Matthew, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Travis, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
It's always a pleasure.
Always.
I'll talk to you next week.
Yep, talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.